zoning ordinance. And the key to this is just what we just spent an hour going over, that table, in this case 5.1, that shows what can be placed in each specific zone as of right or with a special use. So, we start with the obvious ones, what we've done here, the things that are owned by the Forest Preserve and the things that were owned by the township that are obviously, larger parcels, that are woods or prairie or ball fields. That's what we're at. The easements is another issue. I'm not saying we should not consider that, but there's all types of easements. There's drainage easements, there's stormwater easements. I mean, that doesn't really factor into the colors on a zoning map. That is another layer of protection on top of it or underneath, but that's another layer of protection, okay? So if there's a large piece of woods out there someplace and there's no house on it, it's not being used for anything else, and the intention is that's always gonna stay a large piece of woods, no matter who owns it, and it's not on this map, and it has an easement on it, then I need to know, and we can add it, I can add it to the map. So when we go and we present something to the village board for approval, we've encompassed all this. Now, you mentioned easements, so if a property has some type of protection, some other type of protection on it, but it's actually a farmhouse and it's being used as a farmhouse, then for the zoning, it should probably be zoned farm, or it should be zoned RE1 or whatever, because you don't want to create a situation where that house where someone's living now becomes non-conforming, and now they can't put an addition on it, they have trouble doing repairs, okay? You still have that protection from that other document or instrument. Yeah, covenant or whatever it is, all right? Ideally, the zoning map and all these other protections will line up. My guess is there'll be some cases where that maybe shouldn't be zoned open space.
Right, but I would take issue with, we have a lot of open space properties that the township owns that have buildings on them, that the zoning should not change from open space.
Yeah, well, then if we run into that a lot, then we need to take a step back and say, okay, how do we want to define open space, and is there anything in that table 5.1 that somehow we want to incorporate in there and still protect all the other open space?
Eight of the nine large parcels have buildings.
Yeah, and I'm not saying any building
Yeah.
that automatically will become non-conforming. I'm just giving an example. If this is actually a residence and it has some type of covenant on it.
We were talking about this before, protected open space and protected properties.
Yeah.
That's the category that we really want to include in that quote, open space designation.
But I don't wanna accidentally paint all the buildings that are on open spaces as protected, that the township or the Forest Preserve couldn't eliminate because it's not deemed to be part of their mission. Because
Okay, so
you could bankrupt the
Yeah.
township
to maintain it.
to maintain a
Yeah.
bunch of buildings that they should have a rural fire department burn day as a training area.
So we don't want a historic district.
Right, yeah, this isn't
Mike,
historic
hang on.
preservation.
Mike, did you have a comment?
That's where I'm going to, the
Okay.
same thing, the railroads and all that stuff, if part of the reason it's open space because of the historic nature of it, then it should be maybe, yeah, the buildings are part of the interpretation of the land, right? So that is entirely different thing than Carly would, protect that for different reasons. So, yeah.
But I don't wanna
Yeah.
tie the township or the Forest Preserve's hands to have to maintain
Then
a
you
bunch
can
of
put, if
old
it's
buildings.
historic preservation, open space, then that would say the building, we could have it where it doesn't add building use limitations that you would have otherwise, additions, et cetera.
Right.
As that.
Well, the protected properties, whoever said that, is probably a better identifier than
Yeah.
open space. And for whatever reason they're protected, and we could have 8 different, subcategories, but it's protected property.
It could be an overlay on the open space.
You could do that too, an
That
overlay
way-
district.
that way
I mean,
you
again, I don't wanna make this
specifically
super complicated.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, again, the goal is you are limiting the future options for development or redevelopment of that
Correct.
site. And you're still allowing whatever is there now to be repaired, or in some cases, enlarged if the township or park district, I'm sorry, we don't have the park district, but, or the forest preserve wants to enlarge a building on there, you know, they should be able to do it. I'm not the chairman, so, sorry.
He didn't look at me yet.
No, I'm not. He can call on you, he can call, I'm saying, he can call on you.
From the board's perspective, I would think, I'm okay spending extra time on that. Open space is so important to us.
Yeah,
as a
okay.
community. I'm okay spending more time on that. You heard me, Jim knows, my pet peeve from going back from day one is the spray fields for Fox Miller considered open space, which is crap.
Yeah.
And
Technically, you're correct.
it's a visual thing,
Yeah.
sure, but I'm not letting kids play on it, right? So, passively or anything, so I mean, I would be okay with a, however we wanna say it, where we have it as a open space and then overlay it for the reason, why is this open space? It's protected because of the covenant from the home, the PUD, the PUD that went in, or it's protected because he bought it and put it in, you know, I think that's a good idea to spend a little extra time on that.
Right, and I think we gotta be careful with the definition, because we don't wanna tie the township's hands, for instance. They may say that they can carve out 3 acres of 100 acres for a soccer field.
Yeah.
And that's after
The
that
state
act.
statute for township open space is very specific. And there's only 5 townships in the state that even own open space. So as unique as Campton Hills is as a village, is the same thing with Campton Township and the open space program. We're not being compared to somebody else because nobody else is doing what we're doing.
And even, and like in our own personal situation, we designated that in the event something were to happen to the structures on the property that we have easements on, our personal property, that, they could be rebuilt, but they could not exceed a certain size, so you don't have a dwarfing of your natural area that you're trying to protect by suddenly now there's a McMansion, and then before something may be blended more into the landscape. Now, that's what we personally agreed with the township, we both agreed that this is part of the provisions of the easement and all. So that's how easements can vary with different things, but, so it doesn't totally tie the hands, but it does limit, in that case, how big you can go.
Well, then wouldn't that be the equivalency of an HOA? I mean, if the village's ordinances are a little bit broader, but by your choice, you decided to narrow it, that's almost equivalent to like an HOA ordinance that would take priority or precedence in a way.
However, well, it takes 2 to tango to have an easement. So if both parties agreed that, oh, this easement no longer exists because a nuclear bomb fell on it, and there's no point for it, you know, so you can have that kind of situation. So easements can be dissolved if all the parties involved holding them. Because it's just like, okay, if I don't, if you own my gravel mining rights, you know, I agree to a price and allow you to do whatever, then that's fine. But if we both agree to abandon those rights, then okay, you can collectively agree. So, with that, so, but we're looking at, like, the township, they don't, if people in the township requested the township to, let's say, well, like the Whitney Schoolhouse, I'm sure the people in the township, they supported the concept of requiring that to preserve the schoolhouse, so at some point, if there was more of a mechanism to do that, that'd be great. But, you know, that's where, you know, you don't wanna tie their hands, with other structures that may not, fit. But on the other hand, hopefully the public would also say, well, no, the Fessenden House is an unusual design, and it fits the landscape and all that. So you have those kinds of factors which are there.
Right. But I'm saying, if he's saying not to tie the hands of people with buildings to have to maintain and such, so that the village leaves it a little more broad, but then you choose to narrow it with your agreement to not do the McMansion, then that would almost be equivalent to me to like an HOA, where you could narrow down the features of your property.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
The HOA, of course, is flexible too. I mean, with covenants and things like that, they usually have some sort of life expectancy.
Yeah,
Where
renegotiation
after 75
clauses.
years, if the homeowners agree to change something
all right,
No.
go ahead.
Cemeteries, do we need to call those out as a separate category then? Because it seems like we've got this black hole of holes
I would
in the
just leave it,
map.
the cemetery is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, normally, in most towns, they're zoned residential.
Yeah.
I
it
think
is
they
what it
are
is.
here.
It's not like someone's gonna, oh.
Yeah.
It's
Unless
not
you're
open,
the city of
it's not
Chicago,
open
you-
space,
No, it's a cemetery.
No, it's a cemetery, we just leave it.
but we don't have a category.
We do.
Is there a definition?
I think
Yeah, we have a
definition
we have a
for
definition, and I
cemetery.
think it's allowed in one or more residential areas. That's typical of zoning ordinances, that they're zoned.
They're not zoned as residential, they're in residential areas, Jim.
All right.
But they are
Right.
defined.
No,
as
there's
cemetery.
Yeah,
people
there's-
residing there. Grown.
Permanently reside.
Permanent residents.
All right,
That's the-
all right, well, a good discussion, I'm sure we could get a
So,
lot more information,
yeah,
but to wrap things
Yeah,
up.
to wrap things up, I got one comment. So, again, my initial question, was there anything on these maps that should not be on? Like, that is not owned by the township, that should not be on here. And the second question was, what is omitted? And I bet if I go to the township, it won't be a lot, but I will, I'll go to the township. If you know of anything, or if you know of anything in private ownership with a covenant on it, like, or easement, like I said, that's woods, it doesn't have a house, it's not being used for anything else that would fit the zoning, then I need to know, because it's easy to add, it's easy for me to add. And then we'll come back, and, we're gonna get to a point where we're all happy with this, and that's fine. I mean, we can always amend a zoning map, or amend, we can always do that later.
I don't want you to think the maps are a waste.
Oh,
They're not.
I don't
We're-
think you're
I mean, we're
implying.
gonna come back to them, but we just have to make sure we're starting with the correct data.
Well,
And I believe that the township assessor's office will give you something similar to this, and there'll be some differences. And that's what we need to look
The
at.
big picture, though, is just, we wanna make sure is that parcel, whether who owns it or not, is that parcel open space?
Right.
So is that parcel there on that map, and that parcel there on that chart, is that open space? Yes, that's the big key, all right? Granted, having the information, the data is good, but the key is to make sure that the map is reflecting the actual parcel.
And that's why I asked the
Yes.
original question, are these omitted parcels, or are they just incorrect information?
It's just incorrect data, that's my understanding, but I think that's what Jim is looking for. Hey, is there any omitted
Yeah,
area?
I mean, I
That's
don't
what he's-
know.
I need to fill in anything.
So without Jerry's knowledge of these, spots in smaller subdivisions and such, where else would someone go to find that or gather that information that, within this subdivision, they separated a piece that's supposed to stay open
From me-
space?
To me, at the assessor's office. That's where the records are kept. And they should be able to.
But how do you ask that question? Do you say, out of the entire village, can you tell me all the places that I'm supposed to?
Well-
that's why there's someone being hard to look at this, because I don't.
Yeah.
At least we know that all of the parcels in the village are in Campton Township.
That's
So we're only dealing with one entity.
One assessor's office. But the bigger question, folks, define open space, and it's one definition that fits, whether it's township, forest reserve,
Active, passive,
an active, passive, would just be a
right.
part of the definition.
Or
Are we
privately
happy
held,
with
or
that?
privately held.
Are we happy with just one zoning definition called open space? How we color code a map, township versus the forest reserve, is not the issue. We have one definition of open space, protecting it from development.
Right.
That's where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But go
Yes.
back to the protective and development and not use open space. It's protected property.
Yeah, we can change it, that might be
Well, I
one.
think that's more definitive of what we're talking about, because you can have protected
Gives you
property
that.
that you would look at and not call it open space.
Because it
How-
could have active recreation on it.
Yes.
Or farmland.
However, I would
whatever.
say that the term open space is much more
Acceptable.
connected to the public and
Yeah.
everything too, so it would be, I understand where you're coming
Open
from.
space, protected properties. We can add to that.
So,
In response to your question, where you go to find covenants, the recorder
Recorder
of deeds, whenever a subdivision is filed, when it's set up, they then include in there usually a declaration of covenants that pertain to.
And that's a specific
Exactly, and
there's
that's,
at least, I think there's at least 60 of them in the township here that have covenants.
And that's
So
what we're trying to
now, they
avoid
could be
to go
just
first.
no chickens, or no sheds, or whatever, no fences, you know, so it could be right. I mean, some were, actually were stricken down by the Supreme Court, racial discrimination going back, into the fifties, where they were.
All right, so we got OSPP, open space,
Yeah,
protected
whatever, yeah.
property. So the idea then, we're gonna have to start wrapping this up, all right? So the idea is basically to find the property and list the properties on the map that have protected development rights, I guess would be the way to say it, protected from development.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to get at.
Yeah.
And so we can have that for more likely one color, and then we can have layers in the GIS that can say, this is owned by the township, this is owned by, this is a covenant, or this is a, all right?
And I think farmland protection is its own state federal definition.
Yeah.
And that is a different kind of open
Right.
space.
Right.
Because it has
Right.
active row crops.
It's
for-
farmland, it's not
And,
open
yeah,
space.
And we have two of those just on the 95 acres the township bought the easement on, but it was also funded with money that I got from the federal farmland protection.
well, I was gonna say, cause
So there's
farmland,
two entities.
exactly, cause you could have a farmland be completely unused, being in the soil bank for 10 years, and then all of a sudden turn right back into crops.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a completely different animal.
We're not gonna get into that. We're
Right.
just gonna get to the farmland protection,
Just
Right.
a separate category.
separate
Mm-hmm.
category.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right? Great discussion. A big challenge, no doubt, no doubt. But I appreciate the participation and the brain matter and the brain waves working, and to try to help us take a complicated, multifaceted problem into and simplify it. So next time, we're meeting once in August. I'm not sure of the exact date, it's the last one, maybe the last Wednesday, might be the
August
26th.
the 21st.
21st,
Okay. We will be back here working on these again. We'll be talking more about the open space, and then starting to work in some of the, if we can get through that, then start working on some of the commercial properties and so forth, all right?
It is the 21st.
Okay, thank you for checking. All right, and that's kind of the plan.
Right.
If you, I mean, I know I will be in contact with you, Jim, to help, to make sure we got a plan going forward, and then just talk over a few things.
Yeah.
And then, if people with some know-how or knowledge, like Jerry, if you wanna provide any information, that would be great, and, appreciate it. Otherwise, yes, last comment?
Just as far as, sequence, would we be better off looking at the commercial properties first? Since it seems like the open space issues are deep and buried, and
I think we'll have it handled by the
you think so in a
21st.
month?
We'll have it handled. We'll have a good definition for you to consider.
Well, no, I'm
We'll have
saying
a better
having the
parcel-
raw data correct.
Well, we've already hired the attorney to do the covenants and land record stuff, and we'll work with the assessor. We'll have that wired by the 21st.
Okay.
I don't think these maps are terribly far off from what we're gonna end up
No,
with.
right.
No, they are, I mean, there's no.
Just identifying the property.
Right, I don't think
Right.
That's the
they're
big
off.
picture, big picture.
On the Camaros maps that were done, there were many errors on that. Actually, they had a lot of things that weren't even in the village boundaries on their zoning map, but.
All right,
there's been-
so-
And we're getting there. And I do want to say, so for next month, we'll pick this back up. I may have something started on that farm zoning to residential zoning. I talked to someone at the county today on it. I'm kind of gearing up for that, just in case we get through all this. And then I'll have one other chapter to review. We're kind of caught up right now in the chapters, but we still have parking and signs to do.
Okay.
So I'll have one of those ready, I'm not sure which one. I have them both about 70% done. Probably do the one that I think is easiest. I'll have one of those, so we'll just have one new chapter that we haven't looked at. We'll have no previous chapters to review, so it should go quicker, so we should be able to dive into the
Okay.
downtown zoning in this, and then maybe if we're lucky, get to that farm PUD/residential zoning.
Okay,
So that's the plan, is that
okay.
okay?
I like that, I like that plan.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah.